Fighters, what's up? Today on the show, I have my buddy Benji Carlson on the show. He is with Leanscaper. If you're in the landscape industry, you're going to want to check out Leanscaper. And if you're a contractor and you're into making the trades cool again, that's what this episode is all about. We talk about personal development. We talk about leadership. We talk about AI and a bunch of other cool things in between. So without further ado, here's my buddy Benji Carlson. Benji, we made it happen.
We did.
We did.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
We had this scheduled for like a month and a half ago or something like that. And I was coming back from a job that was up in the mountains, and there was a massive accident on this country road. It was backed up for a couple hours, and we ended up having to push it off. And I was just on your show. What was that, just last week?
Last week, and feels like a month ago already. But glad you're here, man. How you Thanks
been?
for having me. Yeah, I'm really good. I'm happy to be here.
So before we dig in, for those that don't know who Benji is, what do you got for us, man? Who are you? What do you do?
Okay, I grew up in the student painting franchising world. I did that for 5 years. I had a lot of success there for a young person, put myself through university. Was a great opportunity. When I finished that, I went and started another business with some friends of mine that I'd met through that system called Breakthrough Academy. And for the last 8 years, that's been my hyper focus. Started out in sales, moved into marketing, then started leading marketing, then built a bit of a content team, and did that. And then at the beginning of this year, just transitioned out of that. And I'm now the executive vice president of community growth here at Leanscaper, which is kind of our new baby, my new thing, and really excited about what's ahead. The Coles notes on that is we are building the first AI-powered operating system for the green industry, and we'll have some products in people's hands literally next week. So it's a really exciting time, making cool stuff, solving hard problems, building a brand, creating a movement. And yeah, that's me, having a ton of fun. I live in Kelowna, BC. I'm Canadian, if you can't tell by the accent. And that's me in a nutshell.
Well, we can tell when you say university.
Right. That's a giveaway.
That's a giveaway. So you're, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it fair to say that your sweet spot is starting shit? Like,
yeah.
You just seem like, I know you did that with Breakthrough and did a lot of cool things there. And then, now with Leanscaper and, what is it about the startup that you like?
I just think it's probably the only thing I'm good at. Like I'm a motor guy. You're a motor guy. And I like when things are messy and chaotic and need to be pushed with a lot of force. When things are set up and they just need to be tended to and managed. And I think that my gifts don't translate to that environment as well. And so I think part of it is you play to your strengths. I think another part of it is just the creative process of taking something from a vision, a mental image that doesn't exist yet, and turning it into reality is something that is, deeply satisfying on a spiritual level that I think is it's hard to scratch that itch elsewhere. And so I think that's why I'm kind of always drawn to these early stage, first 10 years of a business's journey. That to me is the part when it's the most interesting, the most fun, the fastest growth, the most intense. And that's just what works.
Do you prefer chaos or order?
I prefer order, but you kind of make order out of chaos, and
right,
so you sort of need both. Like I really enjoy the process of taking something messy and making it somewhat structured, and then I enjoy the structure for a minute, and then I go look for more chaos to do that too. And to be fair, it should be said that along the way I probably create my fair share of chaos as well. I'm not the most organized. I'm not the perfect executive. I'm far from an exceptional leader yet, although we're working on it. And so, the good comes with the bad, but carving lanes out of what seems like a messy pile of energy and movement and things happening, and turning that into a bit of a system that works is a ton of fun.
Yeah, I love the rush of new things, and probably my ADD. And I've always got to have like I have to have frequent projects happening, or I get bored with the day to day. So I can relate. So, and what's the exact role your title is now?
My role is Executive Vice President of Community Growth, which sounds like a fancy title. Really, what it means is I'm going to be building and leading our content strategy. So it's going to be podcast. It's going to be really high end live digital events that we do, and then it'll be smaller content pieces, a bunch of written form stuff for social. Really, what I like to do is build a content factory that can make the stuff we need to make to put out on the internet, so people can find us and trust us, and then turn the knobs and pull the levers to make that content factory take the right inputs and create the right outputs, so that people find us, love us, and buy from us at scale. And so that's ultimately what I do. Building a community is synonymous with building an audience.
Yeah. So we're going to talk today about making the trades cool and all that, but I'm just curious your thoughts on like where to when it comes to content and strategy and all that stuff. Obviously, you and I both through the years have been encouraging contractors to create content and build that brand and all those different things. What do you see as one of the most common or biggest mistakes they make when they're approaching creating content?
I think for one, people massively overcomplicate it. They think that they need this huge, robust, complex strategy, when really what they need to do is make 3 Instagram reels a week and just get on camera and stop being such a scaredy cat and be embarrassed for a week and then get over it and then make more and then start to see the engagement and then make more. And then, so I think that there's like a big kind of like analysis paralysis thing that happens. I think another really common mistake is they they make content that they like instead of making content that their customers will like or find helpful. Um, the number one rule of content marketing, and there's a really good book which is, it's a little dated now. I think it's from 2008 or 2010, but I think the principles still totally uphold. It's called Epic Content Marketing by Joe Pulizzi. It's kind of a must read if you're serious about this. And like the cardinal rule, the first of many commandments in that book is, it's not about you. It's not about you. It's Now it features you. You play a role in it, but it's about your audience and what they find helpful, and answering the questions that they have and feeding them the information that they need to feel more comfortable buying from you. And so I think that sometimes, I see a lot of plumbers start a podcast because they love podcasts. And you have to say, I'm really sorry, Mr. Plumber, this might blow your mind, but Mrs. Homeowner who buys your plumbing services doesn't want to hear your podcast. They just don't. And so, but what they do want to see is a video of you showing how you fix this and how you fix that and how you train your crews and how your van is organized. They'd love to see that because they feel more comfortable buying from you through that. And so I think that some people maybe just misinterpret the goals. And then I'll tell you the third is, they way overinvest early on, and they'll buy cameras and studios and equipment that they frankly don't need at that stage. And at the end of the day, you can make great content on an iPhone. And when you've absolutely maxed out the iPhone strategy, and you are making so much and having so much fun with it and getting so much results that it feels like a worthy investment, that's the time to go get the camera guy to trail you around at events, or go get the, whatever it is. And I think what that does is it puts this not needed and false sense of pressure on you, where it's like, well, this has to be good because I spent 50 grand investing in this. It's like if you spent zero, you might actually have more fun with it and the content would probably be better. And then a year later, you can invest 10 grand in it. And then a few years later, you can invest 20 grand in it. And I think there's just a much more um, mature and thoughtful and low pressure way to dip your toe in first and get into it before, um, blowing the whole load on this massive setup that now really makes you feel like it has to be perfect, which it doesn't.
Yeah, I've been a drummer for 45 years, and a lot of guys go out and they buy the fancy high-end kit and they can't play it.
Right.
You don't need it.
Yeah.
You need a set. I mean, the kit I have right now I bought for $350 on Facebook Marketplace, and it's a little 4-piece old pearl drum set, and you know the gear doesn't make the quality, is my point, right? All the time, right? Especially when you're starting, to your point, because I think you're still trying to figure out your voice at that point. And
It's so well
you,
said. That's exactly what it
yeah,
is.
yeah. I mean, go back and I'm sure your old videos and podcasts and my first ones. I mean, you go on my YouTube channel and filter the oldest to the newest. It's embarrassing, man. But we leave it up just to show people that there's hope.
The only way to get good at something is to be bad at something for a
Yeah,
while. So there's
yeah.
no shortcuts, and I'd rather be bad at something without spending the money. So that's those. I think those are really easy mistakes to avoid, and it encourages people to just take the leap a little faster.
Yeah, and to your point about they overcomplicate it. I mean, guys, you can take this phone that you have, you're on a job site, say you open up a wall and you see something. Pull out your video camera and just go, "Hey, crazy things happen when we're building things, and one of the things that you got to be aware of if you run into something like this is XYZ, and this is our approach to taking care of it, and this and that." You're just educating. And I think helping people understand, like, we all do content because from a if you're just looking through the business lens, you do content because you want to earn more money, right? You want the company to be profitable, you want to sell more jobs. But getting on there, nothing bothers me more when I see a post from a contractor that's like, um, they're doing content and they think good content is, call for a free estimate. We're offering a 10% sale this month. Guys, that's not content. That's a pitch. And so people hire experts, those that are perceived experts, that are adding value, that are building trust, that are making the case for why you're the one that they should call. And so educate, and to your point, kind of to put a bow on this part, is the whole, it's not about you. It is not about you. That is very well said. So we're talking about making the trades cool again, and I think it's happening.
It
I
is.
really do. I mean, I've seen a big swing in the last decade or so with what we're doing and what I saw you do at BTA and a bunch of other dudes that are podcasting and adding value, and like there's more a contractor apparel brands. There's all these things I think that are just and I think people's frustration with college and how much it costs and what you don't get an ROI from it, and all the debt and all this garbage. I think we're at the first part of the wave of what's coming. So I think the trades are becoming cool again, but I think making them cool. Let me ask you. I don't want to lead the question here. I'm trying to stay on my, not squirrel out here on you, and because this isn't about me, it's about you. So what does that mean to you? Make the trades cool again?
Okay, so to start, it means that they're not as cool as they should be, and they're not as cool as they used to be. I think that's a good place to begin the conversation. What do I mean? I mean, there was a time not that long ago when being a carpenter, being a foreman, being a builder, being a landscaper, being someone who worked with your hands, worked with tools, had a tool belt on, worked in heavy equipment, worked out there in the world on buildings, on properties, on railways, on pipelines, right, was looked at as like pretty honorable and pretty cool and, like, to be honest, kind of sexy. Like, that's cool. That guy can build stuff. That guy
Yeah,
can do things. He's competent.
that's
Um,
badass. Yeah.
that's badass. And so somewhere along the last 30 years, I'm gonna guess, like, that that brand or that polish or that shine or that reputation that it had has been greatly diminished. And I have theories on what's happened, if you want to hear them, and then we can just kind of compare notes.
Yeah,
um
I'd be interested because I have some theories as well. So
so
um,
my
yeah,
thoughts are this: like, there's a few big things. One is, they've given this a name now. They call it the college first narrative, and it's basically, this was brought on my generation. I'm a millennial. I was born in 1992. So anyone that was like a 90s or early 2000s kid was basically spun this story that you really want to go to school, because when you go to, and by that I mean post secondary school, because then you get the better jobs, and then you kind of climb, and you do better. And this is, by the way, this is not a new thought. Most people know this by now. This is a chain of thought that I'll get to the rest of them in a sec. But what has turned out to be the case is, like, that for a lot of people, that was just unbelievably bad advice. I went to school. I dropped out 3 different times. I'm 8 classes away from finishing an undergrad. I have no plans on going back. I can't. There's no compelling reason to. I spent a lot of time and a lot of money to get basically nothing. And I remember the day I was in my first or second year of running a painting business, and I would have been 20 years old, making $20,000 a summer, and then the year after that, like $40,000, and then more and then more. And I remember sitting there in a classroom. I think it was like supply chain management 101, listening to some lady. And this isn't a knock on her. She's a really nice woman, probably a great mom. This was just like my memory of it. I was like, this person has no idea what she's talking about. This class is full of people who have no idea even what they're supposed to be learning, and I could be out there selling a project right now, or finishing a project, or collecting a check. This is dumb. And I left. And it's my story has I've been really fortunate in the sense that doors have just opened, things have just broken my way, and that has not been a hindrance to me at all. Now, there's a lot of people who were spun that story, went to school, maybe didn't have the healthy skepticism that I did, that are now leaving school underskilled, over indebted, really no prospect for what they want to do or how to get there. And so that college first narrative, I think, has, if not completely, will very soon collapse in entire, like, completely. There's no way to continue peddling that lie anymore, because the data is in. We kind of know that that's BS. But that did have a really pronounced effect when universities and high schools have branded themselves really well. And to do that, they sort of poo-pooed on the blue collar environment, the blue collar economy. So that's one thing that I think hurt the brand. I think another thing this is not an external factor. This is an internal thing where we need to look at ourselves in the mirror. I think that contractors have been too slow, although this is changing, too slow to ditch the old school mindset around recruitment and hiring and team building. And by that, I mean, there's some real entitlement, and there's some real, like, uninformed attitudes around what a wage should be and how motivated a young person should be to join their company. Um, there's some really kind of old school macho, and I don't mean macho in a good way. I mean, in this example, macho in a bad way, attitudes around leadership and team building and what people deserve and what I'm entitled to versus what you're entitled to. And I think that's really hurt the brand. I think as a result, we've done a pretty lousy job branding ourselves as an industry, which is really stupid, because it's pretty cool if you double click in on any one of these projects or any one of these roles or any one of these businesses. If you want to look at what I serve the landscaping industry now. If I were to double click in on what a foreman of a design build crew is doing on a job site every day versus what a marketing coordinator for some big nameless, faceless business is doing. I think what the foreman is doing is way more interesting, way more meaningful, way more fun, a lot more challenging, a lot more rewarding than pushing stuff around on a computer, which is where most of the college first suckers have ended up. We'll get to AI displacement in a second, but I'll finish my train of thought on how we've gotten here. And then I think the last piece, which is an external factor, is the removal of shop classes from our public education system, which a lot of people sort of forget about this, don't really know the whole story. So basically, what happened in the mid 90s is the education system went to a standardized scoring program, standardized testing to allocate their funding. So on a on a very, very widespread level, both in Canada and the US, we moved to a situation where schools get more or less money and resources based on how their students perform. And so what they did, I mean, if you want to understand behavior, you follow incentives. And so why would you take shop classes away? That makes no sense. And it doesn't. Well, it would make sense if you were a school administrator and you were trying to get more funding. You would over index on the academic courses, you would under index on the shop classes, kind of to no fault of your own, because you're just trying to run a school and you're trying to get the most money. So I can kind of put myself in their shoes and get them. So, but the policymakers at the top, I think, really blew that decision. And it's led to a situation where there's no feeder programs to take mechanically minded young kids. By the way, there are millions of those. Not everyone wants to sit on a computer all day. There's no feeder programs to kind of take them from someone who likes to play in the garage or someone who likes to be out in the yard or someone who likes to build things with their dad or their mom, to take those and actually move them into something a little bit more credentialed, a little bit more vocational, and sort of get them ready for that jump into the job market. So when I say, they're not as cool as they used to be, they're not as cool as they should be, how could that happen? I think those are a few things that come to mind for me.
I agree wholeheartedly with all of them. You graduated in what, 92, you said?
I was
No,
born
you
in
were born
92.
in 92. Oh my God.
Graduated in 2010, high school.
Okay. So I was born in 1969. And as long as I can remember, all I heard was, you got to go to college. You got to go to college. So it's been going on probably 50
Longer.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would also add that I think this was my case. I come from a family of tradespeople, uncle, dad, grandfather, cousins, whatever, like tons of contractors. The trades were not cool to me because, and I'm not ripping on these people. I love these people. They've formed me. They supported me. So I just want to be clear on that. But when it came to like what type of life they were living, it was not attractive. They were tired. They were dirty, which that's fine. Being tired or dirty is good. But when you're those two things and broke, it ain't cool. And I think that's why I talk about money so much here and so much about contractors working on themselves as business leaders and understanding that you go into business for yourself. You are no longer just the carpenter. You are a business owner, and there is a job description for that you need to work on the business and build a business and build a team and know your numbers and learn, the things that you need to learn so that, you can, I mean, the potential in the trades to me is off the charts of how people could do quality of life and making money. And dude, I was on the board of a bank for several years, and one of the reasons they brought me in is they had a ton of contractors that were part of the bank, that banked there, and they just wanted somebody that knew the industry when they were reviewing paperwork and all that stuff. And I'll tell you, out of all the loan apps and all these different things that came across when it got to the board level on bigger things, the majority of men and women that were crushing it financially were blue collar. They were in the trades. And the biggest rejections, the biggest group of professionals that we would reject for things, the biggest group that had foreclosures on homes was actually doctors. It was crazy. And my old partner, Steve Shinholzer, he charged this guy, or this guy asked him once, he says, how come you got into the trades? And the guy was a doctor, and they had a good relationship. And he says, because I couldn't live on a doctor's salary. And so, but I think part of making the trades cool is achieving a life that looks good to others, you know? And like, because I did, again, I'm not ripping on my family, but like my dad, blue collar his whole life, work ethic out the tail, but he never really made any money. And it is what it is at this point. But to me, that's probably one of the biggest drivers of what I do here at the fight is, man, I want these people to win, you know, not just, you know, I mean, how many contractors listen to this right now? You're in your car, whatever, raise your hand if you're guilty. We're not going to see who are, so you can just be honest. How many of you have driven by a project and you have the pride of building the thing or painting the thing and you show it off to your spouse? And I remember driving my stepdad by one of the first big jobs that our painting company did, and it looked gorgeous and I was all proud of it. But what he didn't know is I made no money on it, you know? So making the trades cool also means you're checking the money box.
Making a profit is one of the coolest things you can do as a business owner, and I love that you have been such a ambassador, proponent of that message. I think too, like when I think about this conversation, there's a very much like a timely piece to this now that's important. Like I don't think that this conversation was ready to be had yet 10 years ago, maybe even not 5 years ago, but right now it's incredibly important. And I'll give you a few reasons why. We are living through an increasingly, like a very serious housing crisis in North America. The top 100 builders in the USA would have to double their output for a decade just to catch up. So I don't like this is a very, very serious gap. This isn't like we're short a bit. We're short a lot. So the demand pressures and when you might say, okay, well, that's relevant for construction, but they're one of the most upstream, trades, crafts in the whole system. So if you have more construction, you also have more framers, you also have more drywallers, you have a lot more plumbers, you have a lot more painters. The whole system flows from there. So this is a very serious thing that needs to be addressed and will be addressed one way or another, but the time is now, and those demand pressures create a really ripe opportunity for smart, young, tradesy people. And your listeners will know, there's someone listening in their truck as well who's probably killing it right now, who nobody thought would do as well as they're doing, and they're kind of feel like they're sitting on this huge seat because, like, turns out it's awesome to be a plumber. I've got three trucks on the road. I create my own schedule. I love my team. I love my customers, and I'm making way more than my friends who went and got, business administration degrees. So the housing shortage is relevant. The other thing that's happening right now that people are starting to talk about is we are, whether we like this or not, I'll just go and say I don't really love it, and I work for an AI company. Like we are going to see a pretty pronounced offloading of human capital from businesses as AI, and more specifically agentic AI, hits the market. So a lot of people whose roles are administrative or task focused, I'm talking about the coordinators, the administrators, the assistants, probably at the executive level and the high level leadership like sort of zones of an organization, they're safe, but these lower level information worker roles are ripe for massive disruption over the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to happen faster than you think, and I've heard estimates as high as 30% of the white collar economy is going to be jobless by 2030. That's a big number. So why is that important? Well, in my mind, there's going to be this labor shortage that we've been talking about for 20 years is about to correct. There's going to be supply of people who are looking for work, And guess what? You're sitting on the most AI resilient sector of the economy, because the robots aren't good enough and won't be for a while. And the 3D printed houses are cute, but they kind of suck if you've ever been in one. So we have this really interesting little zone here where we run businesses who, one, are not getting massively disrupted by AI, and two, can absorb the people who are. And so I think that you really need to be like, wake up here, people. This is a great time to make trades cool again and make it more appealing, because I think that there's opportunity that will not be there forever. Two other things I'll hit really quick. Um, the the promise of remote work and work from home and that whole thing, I think the cracks are starting to show. People are having a really hard time staying motivated, finding meaning, finding community when they're just clearing out an inbox and doing a few tasks on their computer. I straddle two worlds. I've got a whole bunch of friends who are in the information worker economy, and I've got even more friends in the blue collar worker economy. The blue collar worker ones don't struggle with meaning and loneliness and sadness. It's hard, it's stressful, but they're not sitting there wondering what the point of life is and whether or not they're having an impact, because they can see it. They can see it in the work they do and the people they lead. So I think that's an interesting sort of timely piece. And then the other thing too, just about the money is this: the supply of skilled workers has gotten so bad and so low that the price has been driven so high, that the outside of really 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 low level, like frontline worker roles, and that's going to change too, by the way, very very soon. Those people are going to be compensated beyond their wildest dreams. Most ticketed trades, most competent roles on a job site are approaching six figures or beyond it. And so I think there's a price function to this that makes now a really interesting time to have this conversation too.
Earlier, you touched a little bit on you think there's a little too much of the old school BS around recruiting, culture, all that. How would Benji fix that?
So I think that, yeah, that's a great question. I think the leaders of tradesy businesses right now need to do a few things. I think that some investment in personal development and growth and spiritual health, even if that isn't your thing, I think is a really, really useful thing to do right now. If you're having a hard time attracting young people, the problem is not young people, unfortunately. The problem is you. And there's a look at yourself in the mirror check that you need to do. And the tools are there, and the books are there, and the guidance is there, and the counselors are there, and the communities are there. There's no excuse to be this crotchety old guy who no one can work for or work with anymore. And if that's you and that's who you want to do, just go from job to job and work with yourself, but don't try and build a business and then get mad at the world when the world doesn't want to work with you. So I think that's one practical point. I would say an embracing of social media and personal brand and content creation would be another really practical point. Becoming a little bit more modern in the way that we communicate, the way that we brand ourselves, not being afraid to make the video like we talked about earlier, not being afraid to make the post. I think that that's a really, really helpful thing. I could get into, I got a list I could run through, but a third, and I'll pause here, would be an embracing of technology. I think that the world of tools that we have available to us right now is pretty incredible. The most advanced, bit of technology is no longer a paint sprayer. Like it's the software you run your business on. It's the way you communicate with your teams. It is, in some cases, in some industries, the actual technology and technical equipment that we're working with on job sites now, the way that we do design, the way that we plan our projects. I mean, to say that the trades are an old school industry, That might be the case in a couple businesses, but not the ones that we work with. These are very, very tech forward, tech enabled businesses. And that's ultimately what young high performers want to do. When people say everyone's, addicted to technology, that doesn't mean that they don't want to work in physical reality or work with their hands, but they want to do it with modern tools. And so I think if people are stuck on pen and paper, and no financial tracking systems online, like they're stuck with an old tool set, I really think that's an uphill slog. So those would be a few things that come to mind if people are kind of trying to change the tide for themselves.
Yeah, and on that point, like you brought up like even social media and stuff, like use your social media to show, how do I word this? Show people what's in it for them if they're part of the team. Right? None of us want to spend our time, talent, sweat, blood, tears for something that there's nothing in it for us. There's no bigger vision for us. Tommy Mello always talks about, right, create a dream so big everyone else's fits under yours. And um I just hired 2 new painters for our company here, and um in our second interview with each of them, I sat down and I just said, I'm like, tell me about some of the goals that you have personally and professionally over the next 3 years. And the one guy goes, I've worked for 6 or 7 painters over the last however many years. And he goes, nobody's ever asked me what I wanted. Like, guys, this is just, it's caring about other people, right? They're not just a human being is not a, it's not, they're not a tool. They're a person. They have goals, they have dreams. They're not to be used, they're to be supported. And when you support them and help them get what they want, I mean, I think I've told the story on the show here a few times where we had a guy in one of my old companies, and my business partner sat him down and asked him that question. This is probably 20 years ago now. And he said, what do you want to accomplish this year? We were going into the new year. And the guy goes, my wife and I never had a honeymoon. And, we've been married 6 or 7 years, and she's always wanted to go to this one bed and breakfast. And my business partner, Bruce, at the time, he's like, well, what's that cost? And he's like, it's $3,500 or so for the weekend and all this other stuff. And he's like, and that's where you guys really want to go? And he goes, yeah. He says, all right, let's sit down and map out how we're going to get you there. And Bruce spent an hour with him, and he was one of our crew leaders. And so we had some incentives for crew leaders and stuff. And he reverse engineered the math. And his goal, I think it was like, call it early January, they had the conversation, and his goal was to do it by the end of the year. He did it in 3 months. He was able to take her in 3 months because Bruce helped him. Right. And it's what Zig Ziglar, help enough people get what they want, you get what you want. I mean, that is one of the most timeless principles I think there is. And I think to your point on younger people as well, they don't want to work for you because you're a dick. I mean, really, you're impatient. You forget that somebody trained you. I mean, I think about when I first started my very first painting company ever, and I did my first few jobs. I'm like, oh God, I should call those people back and apologize, because there were like issues with the experience, the communication. The quality wasn't as good as it was when I sold the company. All those different things, and but because I was the sole owner, the sole employee of the business at the time, nobody was giving me crap about it. You know what I mean? So yet we hire somebody with no experience or minimal experience or who needs some dialing in, which we all do, and we don't have patience with them, and we don't coach them and nurture. And I had a mentor years ago. Somebody asked him, how do you train these new guys in the field and stuff? He says, he was not an old guy, but he says, I think of my grandfather, and I actually change my identity to being a grandpa. You think of the grandfather in the garage with the grandson, the granddaughter, making a little wood toolbox or doing something. Like, they're patient, they're gentle, they're not jumping your ass. They're, most grandfathers aren't. Your dads do that, but grandfathers are usually a little more patient. And so, you guys, if you're having an issue with this, first change your identity around it is your job to recruit. It is your job to build an attractive business. It's your job to give people something they give a crap about and they can't wait for Monday morning to show up. Right. And um, you don't get over that mental hurdle in your brain right there. None of the tactics or strategies are going to do you any good.
Yeah, and that's what I mean when I say the personal development aspect of this is really the starting point. Um, there's just this prevailing, or there has been this prevailing attitude, and it's generally with the older cohort of business owner. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
mean to be ageist, but I got to be honest. Like the 35-year-old blue collar millionaires, and I know 100 plus of them. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
joking. Um, they don't struggle with this problem.
No.
Like they just don't. Like they're not. I'm not saying it's easy, but they're not like dying for workers, and they're not sitting there scratching their head why no one will apply to their job ad or no one will stick around for
Yeah.
3 months, even if they do. They have this problem solved, and to be honest, I think sounds a little kind of out there. I do think it's an energetic thing. These entrepreneurs are putting out a certain vibe, they're living a certain brand, they're casting a certain lifestyle, they're building a certain business that's attractive to a certain kind of person. And I think that people like that are making trades cool again. And so I think I have this like saying that I talk about with a lot of people in our community, which is I think we need to get young. And that doesn't, I'm not saying you have to like wind back the clock. I'm saying you have to get young in our mindset. We can't be old or fixed in our mindset. We have to get young. We have to install young leaders. We have to create young and alive brands and businesses. And I really think that is a useful thing to key in on at every level of your company right now. Try to hire young people. Try to install young people, young leaders. Um, Try to adopt a younger mindset, even if you're an older operator. I think that you will be pleasantly surprised with how many people are actually looking for a job like the business that you run offers. Um, there's another thing I'll just mention too is I think there's a huge opportunity when I think about how do we make the trades cool again. There's two other things I'll mention here. One is branding and swag. I think there's absolutely low hanging fruit available for companies who invest in a new brand package. And a lot of people gawk at the idea that they would spend $20,000 getting a brand done and a website built and new swag made and new brochures done to have their company look a certain way. But then they don't gawk at blowing $20,000 a year on paid ads that do nothing because their brand sucks. So it's like you just need to go. It's like fix the root issue. The root issue is your business is your initials plus the word painting. It's JKP Painting, which, like, no offense, but no one's ever heard of, and it's not the most original idea. Um, is there a way to just make this a little bit more of a modern looking feeling company through branding? And you don't need to hire the best brand guy and spend 100 grand on this. You'd be amazed at how cool of a revamp you can do on Upwork. um, Most good designers, brand designers, basically leave you with a brand toolkit, so all the updates to your website and your social you can do yourself or someone in your office can. So I think that's a really slept on thing. Get swag that people like. Buy cool hats that people want to wear, and buy cool shirts that people love to wear. And you'd be amazed at how quickly people are repping your brand much more readily. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is just really looking for opportunities to move towards performance pay. Now, I think that this is going to sound wild, but I think that in the next 15 years, I don't think that anyone is going to be paid hourly anymore. And I'll tell you why. The only reason we pay hourly is because since the dawn of time, our ability to measure actual output, actual production has been so bad that the concept is just kind of too abstract to go there. but we have had watches for a while. And so what we did is we measured time and we paid by time. As this is what we're doing at our company, which I'm really excited about. We're building AI-powered scorecards that will gamify how productive a landscaper is, how productive a department is, how productive a business is. As tools like this become more sophisticated, and they will, there just won't be a reason to pay hourly. We'll just pay for output, and the best crews will get the best pay, and the worst ones will get the worst pay, and that's how the whole system should have worked the whole time. Just the tools weren't ever good enough to do it.
So,
and so
do
I
you
think,
think we're going to rehash Piecework? Is that what you think is going to happen?
1,000%.
Yeah.
It's already happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Um,
piecework, really interesting bonus packages and
Yeah.
gearing mechanisms and scorecards. And I just think young, smart, savvy business owners right now are moving away from these fixed hourly rates and towards stuff that tracks against performance. And you can read a million books on that. I'm not going to tell you how to do it for your business, but if you're
Right.
looking for a directional shift, it would be away from fixed rate and towards more piece rate, more performance-based systems.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So I got I could go a lot longer, but I want to be respectful of the time. I know you have other meetings and stuff today. So I got 4 rapid fire kind of off the cuff questions for you.
Bring it.
And then after that, I would just ask you where people can learn more about Leanscaper and wherever you want to direct them and all that. Sound fair?
Yep. Sounds
Cool.
great.
All right. Question 1, what's something you changed your mind on about in the last year?
That's such a great question. Something I've changed my mind on in the last year. I've changed my mind. I've changed my mind on my outlook towards people and the time frame that I analyze growth on. What I mean by that is I've taken a much more long-term view on the people I hire, and I've had to learn. I really have struggled with being impatient my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm impatient with myself and I'm impatient with other people, and it's created for a situation where everyone's intimidated by me and feels like my expectations are totally unrealistic. And I've ended up not. The reality is I just haven't gotten the results that I've wanted. And so what I'm doing now is I'm just trying to look on a much longer window, and instead of how is this person tracking this week? It's how is this person tracking this quarter or this year? And if you expand, it's just like the reporting in your CRM. If you look at a 1 week window versus a 1 year window, the trends become more obvious. But when you're too zoomed in, the data isn't showing you much of a delta, much of a change. And I've made that mistake over and over, and I'm trying to just have a longer term approach to people, and it's helping. And it's helping me, and it's helping our results, but more importantly, it's helping them.
I love that. And I don't want to hijack this too much, but you made me think. I see so many contractors beating themselves up because they're comparing themselves to someone else, right? The comparison thing is a problem. I've struggled with it and this and that. And if you just plot where you are today, like you said, and zoom in, you get depressed. When I zoom out and I look at my last decade, I'm like, damn. Right. So for those of you that are beating yourselves up for, all that, I encourage you to pull back and look at, like Benji said, the trajectory. Next question. Worst advice contractors keep getting?
Oh man, there's so much. I think the worst advice that contractors keep getting is around I see a lot of really bad advice around in the sales and marketing world, and there's just too many kind of gurus who are teaching tactics and not enough people teaching principles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for objection handling. I think that's important. But if you're like so hardcore about the sale starts when they say no. I just think that you need to take a step back and like look at the offer. Okay, so like people buy from people they trust, and people purchase things they find useful. If you're having a really hard time selling, they don't find what you're selling useful and they don't trust you. And no tactic is going to change that. No brochure is going to change that. No neuro linguistic, whatever you're doing is going to change that. You need to go back to basics. And am I building rapport? Am I understanding their needs? Am I putting together a proposal that they find compelling? And am I asking for the job at the end? I think that there's a lot of wasted time and energy on tactics when people really need to be learning principles.
Love it. Book, podcast, or tool that's leveling you up right now?
Okay, I'm gonna go tool, and I'm gonna go. Not gonna surprise anyone, but it's AI stuff. My New Year's resolution for 2025 was to get up to speed on AI tools. I was doing the whole ostrich syndrome thing because I was scared of the future and Terminator's going to take over, and that may be the case. But there's no advantage. I realized there was no advantage available to me by being in denial and not using the tools. And so there's probably 4 or 5 things that I use every single day for a whole bunch of different things that are really changing the game and creating giving me the feeling of like an exoskeleton or a super suit or a productivity multiplier where I'm just able to work through things at a pace and a tempo that I wouldn't have believed possible a year ago. The way I prepare content, I don't ever post stuff made by AI because but I do brainstorm with it and I do research with it and I do strategize with it. But everything I output is ultimately me or my thoughts. But it's unbelievable the amount of productivity that it unlocks. And so I would say all things AI, GPT. I'd be looking for project management tools with an AI layer inside of it. Like we use Notion for everything. We're building AI here at Leanscaper that's going to do all of that for landscapers specifically. So tool that's leveling me up is AI right now. And then a book I'll mention right now is Scott Galloway's The Algebra of Wealth. It's a good book on personal finance if people need a little money help. It's a great read.
Awesome. Have you heard of Plod?
Yes, we use it.
Yeah. Plod is pretty cool. Couple of my coaches we're sharing it with the group and how they're using it. And if you guys don't know, like you can wear it on your wrist, you can wear it around your neck, whatever. There's a thing that'll attach to your phone. And when I have, if I'm having a sales call or if I'm having an interview with a potential employee or whatever, I just hit it. And what it does, you guys, and I'm like just scratching the surface. So if there's other stuff here you want to share about it.
No, Plod's good.
I'm blown away because it will give me a summary of the conversation. And so sometimes, like, especially like a sales meeting or something, guys, we can't remember everything, right? And it's just cool because I can have that. I can have eye contact. I'm not distracted writing everything down. So it records it, but then you push a button and it gives you a summary of the highlights and the things. If I say, Benji, when you're going to hire somebody for this project, what's the most important thing that's going to make this a great experience for you? Well, I might miss something. And so I literally just started using it like not even a week ago. So pretty cool.
It's unbelievable.
One thing every contractor should do this week to get better.
Every contractor should start. They won't be able to finish it in the week, but they need to start on their painted picture. It's a really simple question and nobody does it. It is, what the hell do you want? What do you want? What do you want in your life? What do you want your life to look like in 10 years? Let's just do 10 years. I'm not saying like deathbed. I don't think anyone can even imagine what 10 years from now is going to look like. So let's just start. That's kind of the longest time horizon anyone can think of. what do you want your life to be? How do you want your marriage to feel? What do you want your body to look like? How do you want to feel when you get up? What is your spiritual life? What does your bank account look like? What does your business look like? What kind of car do you drive? What kind of toys do you have? I mean, I went through this exercise 18 months ago, and it has profoundly changed the way that I interact with the world now that I have things written down. And you know what? I'm going to go do it. That's the other thing. Like, just watch me. Like, it will happen. But it's not even about the destination, it's about how it feels in the meantime getting there. And so I think that people, if they haven't yet, go read a book called Viv and Vision by Cameron Harold and begin writing your painted picture. And if it takes you 6 months because you have to pick away at it, no problem. But you're going to really enjoy the process, and you're going to have a North Star for your life that you think you have right now. But until you write it down, because writing forces your subconscious to start thinking about things. And so you write a version, and then a few days later, you go back. You say, actually, it's different. I want to refine it. And when you finish, you'll look at it and be like, yeah, that's it. What is going to change for your motivation levels, mental health, the way that you think, how expansively you lead. It's the most profound change, and I can't believe how many people don't have that.
It's really funny you bring that up. I've had Cameron on the show a couple times, and here's mine.
Yeah,
it's all here.
Exactly.
My vivid vision, and it's funny. The first line, it says, the contractor fight is changing the way people think about contractors. We make them attractive financially, physically, and emotionally.
Yeah.
Like, that's my first line. Again.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's guys like, yeah. And why do you think this works?
I don't know. There's some weird stuff in the universe that happen. There's reasons. I don't know what they are. I just know that it works.
Yeah, probably somewhere along the lines, you get more of what you focus on, right? Your RAS attracts the things you say that are important. You see evidence of them in your everyday life. You see opportunity. Yeah, I don't know all the woo-woo stuff to it, but I know it. I know it's pretty powerful. So,
100%.
Well, dude, where can people check out what you got going on? What do you want them to do?
We just launched the Leanscaper podcast. If you're a landscaper, that would be an amazing podcast to subscribe to. That's going to be kind of one of a few channels that I stand up and lead. More broadly, if you're interested in what we're up to, leanscaper.com. We have an amazing online free community, community.leanscaper.com, where you can come in. There's over 2,000 contractors in there already. They'll probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000 by the end of the year. There's forums to join. There's hundreds of free SOPs in there. We do our events in there. You can schedule a free business assessment with one of our guides. It's a really valuable and free tool for landscapers. So community.leanscaper.com. You can find us there. That's my digital footprint. On Instagram, you can just go to @Leanscaper.
Yeah, I'm looking for it right now. You just did a LinkedIn post. You shared about the podcast, and you had a guest list, and wasn't Marcus Sheridan like your first guest?
Sheridan was on. Yeah. His episode just came out this morning.
Yeah. No, you're doing some great things there. So I encourage people to check out that podcast in the community. And then give us a little highlight on what's releasing next week. So you talked about this operating system.
So we're gonna have a beta version. It's only for some of our, like, it's not open for the public yet, but we have sort of a few hundred clients already that we're gonna expose this to for the first time. Think about a large language model that's been trained on all of the data that the landscaping industry has. Its SOPs, its financials. We have an unbelievable amount of information that we fed this thing. It's called LANA, and so it's an AI assistant specifically for landscapers. So if you ask ChatGPT really landscape specific questions, it wouldn't be able to give you the best answers right now. It would guess. If you were to ask LANA exactly how to do X, Y, Z on a landscaping site, it would build you an SOP in a minute, and you'd turn around and give it to your crews and look like a genius. So that's the first feature we have available, but there's other stuff coming out soon.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, dude, thanks for carving out so much time for us. Thanks for the patience of this happening with my mountain road excursion last month and this getting pushed off. But super proud of what you're doing, what you've been doing, and helping people. And guys, hit the link, check out Leanscaper. And if you're in the landscape industry, you won't be sorry. And Benji, appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for being here.
Always a pleasure, Tom. Appreciate you.
You got it. You guys rock. We got to roll. We are out.